You believe every leader should leave a legacy. First, what do you mean by that? Why is this the most opportune time? And third, how does a leader build his brand strong enough to leave such a lasting legacy?
You ask a very pertinent question, Alok, and I think the question that really resonates is this question of what's your legacy. But let me start with a couple of other questions. You're not going to get any answers from me today, but you will get a lot of questions, I promise. When I'm working with senior executives, and it's particularly senior executives who have these questions, usually three questions come up as they get towards the end of their career and their life. And the three questions are, did I live well? Did I love well? And did I matter? And living well, I can't deal with that in the short time that we have together. I'm not going to deal with loving well, although I have to tell you, because my wife might watch this, we celebrated our 37th wedding anniversary just last week. So I'm really excited about that. But did I matter? Did I matter? Did I make a difference? And as we get towards the end of our life, we often think, or the end of our career, shall we say, we often think, was it worth it? Was all that worth it? And there's actually a phase that psychologists have recently begun to include, not just sort of teenage years, midlife crisis, but there's a phase towards the end of our lives when we go into something called legacy building in our minds. We're trying to make sense of the world, or sense of our world and the part that we played in it. And that idea of did I matter? Did I make a difference? For me, that's what I mean by legacy. A legacy is not a building. It's not concrete. It's not your name above the arch of a school or a hospital, though these can be elements of your legacy. The other thing I want to say about legacy is people say, when I get to the end of a project, let's look back, or what's the legacy of the Olympic Games? It's something that people regard it as something that you think about at the end when you're looking back. A legacy is something you leave. And I think, no, I think a legacy is something you build. Now, you can build it consciously, or you can build it unconsciously. You can just do your work and hope for the best, or you can consciously try to make a difference. And that's where I would urge people, and particularly now, to be thinking not just how do I cope, but how do I make a difference? And that's why I think COVID and this pandemic time and these COVID tales that you're curating, it's awesome. Because I want people to think, if you're listening to this now, not just how do I get through this, but how do I make a difference through this, or how do I make a difference to my time now? So I think there's a very important time dimension to legacy. And most people leave it too late to think about that. The other issue is legacy is a bit like reputation to an extent. Legacy is in somebody else's mind. It's what they think you did, or how they think you changed the world. And so some people say, well, I don't need to worry about my legacy because it's in the minds of other people. My reputation is in the minds of other people. I think we all should be concerned about legacy. And I want to say, what do I mean by that? Let me move on to the sort of the second piece of that. And is this an opportune time? And I think absolutely yes. Because there's more than one kind of legacy. You don't just have one legacy. Actually, you can have 5 different kinds of legacy. There are 5 domains for the legacy you leave. And the first area, of course, is your family. And I won't really say much about that, except to say, please participate in your family life. No one gets to the end of their life, their deathbed, and says, I wish I'd spent more time in the office. It's always the other thing. It's always about family and so on. So please take care of your family and spend precious time with your children, with your teenagers, with your young adult families. Anyway, you guys get this more than most in the world, by the way. I also want to say something about the second kind of legacy that you can leave, and that's the legacy to the business that you're currently in right now. How are you making a difference to the business that you're in right now? What needs fixing? How can you take that area of the business that you serve to the next level? Well, what area could that be in? Well, it could be in the third area of your legacy, your professional legacy, whether you're an accountant, an industrial engineer, an administrator, HR, finance, you work on an oil rig, you have a profession. And so how will you change in the course of these difficult times? How will you improve or make a difference to your profession? I don't know if you do continued professional development or training or learning, but how can you change? You know, what needs changing in your profession? So do everything you can to improve accountancy, HR, manufacturing, whatever part you play in the firm, in the business, in the institution that you serve, how can you make a difference there? There's also the industry that you serve, because you can be an accountant in an oil company. So the industry that you serve is different from your profession. So how can you change your industry for the better? How can you make a difference in your industry? There's a particular corner of your industry in which you sit that you can make a difference in. Seek it out. Seek it out and make a difference there. And then finally, the difference that you make in the region where you live, or to the world generally. And I want to end this little bit of a segment here before I talk about brand, Alok. A young man called Rami Makhzoomi, I wrote a book about him called The CEO's Journey. He was an amazing young man, and he inherited his father's business, as young men often do, young men and women. And he grew the business from, I think, $200 million in revenue to $1 billion in revenue. Took it to the edge of an IPO. And, you know, people were asking him, and we were sitting in the Le Gray restaurant in Beirut, which looks out over Beirut. And I know it's in a pretty poor state at the moment, but at that time, you know, this IPO was about to happen. And somebody said to him, you know, you're going to do very well out of this IPO, aren't you? He said, this is not for me. You know, the IPO is not about me. It's about my family. And I'm going to make, you know, life well for my children and for my children's children. And then that's it. Because after that, I'm going to stop working. And he paused, and then he said, because I want to spend my time changing the world. And, you know, it's like a smack in the face when you hear somebody say that, a young Arab man born in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, wanting to make this massive difference in the world. He spoke on stage in America at the request of Obama, and speaking to the Arab American community, and saying, you know, you're looking for young men and women to make a difference in the world. We're here, he said. We're here and we're ready. And I'm just, you know, I'm actually choking up right now just recalling this young man, because he reached the age of 33. We had started a research project together, and he said, great, my wife was involved, Jackie, business journalist, I'm a business school professor, he was a business executive, an amazing collection of three people. We built something called the Tomorrow's Leaders Research Institute. He went to the gym the day we signed the papers for that, and he burst a blood vessel in his head. And within 12 hours had passed away at the age of 33. And, you know, when you ask me why I think legacy is so important, it's important to have a concept of what it is you want to do, but it's also important to take action on it now, to do something about what you think is important now. What Rami taught me through the commitment of his life to getting things done was to set high goals and high standards for yourself, because you never know when your journey will be over. So I would say, in a positive note, to be impatient for change. Be very impatient. If something needs doing, if you can see that something needs doing, you have a responsibility to take action and correct it. Leadership is a responsibility, said Rami. Leadership is a responsibility and not a right. And so I want you, if you're listening to this thinking, yeah, I know there's something that needs doing in my business or in my profession, don't just be a critic, be a change agent. Take charge and make it happen. I don't have time to go into, you know, more detailed thoughts on building a legacy, but I'm happy to share the work that we've done for Virgin Unite on that and the plans that we have. But I wanted to just say something on brand, just because you asked so nicely, Alok. I think one of the ways that we each can change from being just somebody who does the work to somebody who leads the work and who builds legacy in advance is by thinking about your reputation. And the question I ask, and you might remember this, Alok, I think I put this to you when we met in your previous life. The question I put to you is, what are you known for? When people call you, why do they call you? Because for those of us in leadership, and especially now, if people are calling us for our technical professional skills, we're lost. We have to be known for turning around difficult projects, for helping people through this time, for holding their anxiety. We need to be known as leaders, not just as doers, as operational people. So I want to ask you a second question. It's not about what are you known for now? What do you want to be known for? You know, if we're lucky enough to meet a year from now, what will you be known for a year from now? And so I want you to set up in your mind a sort of a potential difference between now and some date in the future. What do you want to be known for? And I hope that some idea of the legacy that you have, or the legacy that you want to build, might be in your mind. You want to be known for making a massive difference in this area. So I'm going to just pause there and say, I am sorry I've gone into such detail on this, but I am so determined to share this message that legacy is worth fighting for, and it's worth fighting for now, not waiting till the end of your career or time. Is this making any sense, Alok?
Absolutely, very profound. And I think this is like the fuel that you have injected to all the viewers who've live today, including me and Sangram, and all of those who will listen to this podcast.